The office was buzzing like any other weekday. Phones ringing, keyboards clacking, meetings happening in every corner. No one really paid attention to the janitor. He moved quietly through the hallways, emptying bins, wiping down glass, replacing supplies. He had a rhythm to his work, almost invisible to the people walking past. Everyone knew his face, but not his name. He was just the janitor, and that was it. But something strange happened one morning. The CEO of the company, Mr. Wallace, was walking to a conference room when he paused near the break area. He heard two voices speaking in rapid French. That wouldn't have been unusual. This was a global company. But what caught his attention was the second voice. It was familiar, calm, smooth, perfect pronunciation. Mr. Wallace turned slightly, expecting to see a visiting translator or foreign consultant. But instead, he saw the janitor, mopping the floor, speaking casually in French to one of the international interns. Mr. Wallace didn't interrupt. He stood still for a second, trying to make sense of what he just witnessed. The janitor spoke as though it were second nature. No accent, no hesitation, just flowing conversation. And then, without pause, the intern switched to Spanish, and the janitor followed right along. Fluent again. Clear. Effortless. The CEO blinked. Was this a prank? A misunderstanding? He waited a bit longer. The two continued talking, now switching into a third language. Italian this time. The janitor didn't even flinch. By the time the intern walked off, Mr. Wallace stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said. "Did I hear you speaking 3 different languages just now?" The janitor looked up, a little surprised, but not nervous. "Yes, sir," he replied. "I speak a few." Mr. Wallace raised an eyebrow. "A few? How many exactly?" The janitor smiled shyly. 9. There was a pause. The CEO chuckled, thinking it might be a joke. But the janitor didn't laugh. He just continued wiping the counter, as if nothing unusual had happened. Mr. Wallace suddenly felt like he'd just discovered a secret treasure buried right beneath his feet. He asked the janitor to join him in his office later that day. Not as a warning or meeting for complaints. No, this was pure curiosity. Something about this man, someone everyone overlooked, now carried a mystery that couldn't be ignored. When the janitor walked into the office later, he looked calm. He sat across from the CEO, hands folded in his lap. Mr. Wallace leaned forward. "Tell me more," he said. The janitor introduced himself properly for the first time. His name was Elias. Born overseas, moved around a lot, learned languages from books, from people around him, from listening closely and repeating what he heard. He never went to college. He never worked in a high-paying job. But he loved words, and he loved learning how people think and speak across the world. He'd worked as a janitor not because he lacked ambition, but because he needed stable work when he moved to the city. He liked keeping things clean, liked working in the background, never felt the need to show off what he knew. Mr. Wallace was stunned. He wasn't just impressed. He was curious why no one had ever noticed. How could man this intelligent, this skilled, have been overlooked for so long? Elias didn't seem bitter about it. "People see what they want to see," he said simply. From that moment on, something shifted in Mr. Wallace's mind. It wasn't just about one janitor speaking 9 languages. It was about how blind they had all been. How much potential could be hiding in plain sight. He couldn't stop thinking about it. What if Elias wasn't the only one with hidden skills? What if his entire company was filled with people capable of more, if only someone asked? As word slowly started to spread, the office whispered about what the CEO might be planning. No one expected what would happen next. The next morning, the office felt different. Rumors had started to ripple through the cubicles. People were talking, softly, cautiously. "Did you hear what happened yesterday?" Someone whispered. "Apparently, Elias speaks 9 languages." The janitor, 9. Another added. The CEO called him into his office. For almost an hour. What do you think that was about? Elias, as usual, just showed up to work like nothing happened. He moved through the building quietly. Same blue uniform, same warm nods when someone passed by. But now, people looked at him differently. There was curiosity in their eyes. Some offered awkward smiles. A few stopped to ask, "Is it true? Do you really speak that many languages?" Elias would smile politely and say, "Yes, I do," and then go right back to cleaning. But behind the scenes, Mr. Wallace was planning something bigger. That afternoon, he called an emergency meeting, not with the board, not with senior executives, but with his department heads and HR. The topic wasn't profits or strategy. It was people. "How many of you," he asked, "actually know the full background of the people who work here? Not their job titles, not their resumes. I mean who they really are." Silence filled the room. One manager cleared her throat and said, "We review their applications. That's usually enough, right?" Mr. Wallace shook his head. "That's the problem. We think it's enough, but it isn't. We have a man cleaning our floors who could easily be sitting in international strategy meetings. A man who can negotiate deals across 3 continents without a translator. And none of us noticed." He paused to let the weight of those words sink in. Mr. Wallace proposed something unusual, a company-wide skills discovery program. Every employee, from the IT guy to the cafeteria cashier, would be given a chance to anonymously share hidden talents, languages spoken, hobbies, certifications, anything they'd never put on a resume. It wouldn't affect pay, status, or job security. It was just a way to see the full picture. HR was hesitant at first. Some worried it might be a distraction. Others thought most employees wouldn't respond. But Mr. Wallace was firm. If Elias had kept that to himself forever, we'd never know what we were missing. Within a week, the company rolled out a simple internal portal. No names, just boxes to tick. Languages spoken, instruments played, degrees earned, countries lived in, side projects, patents, volunteer work. Then a final question. Would you be willing to share the skill with others at work? What came back shocked everyone. A receptionist who spoke fluent Russian and had a degree in political science. A warehouse worker who designed mobile apps in his spare time. A security guard who had served as a field medic overseas. A call center rep who had written 2 published novels. The talent hiding in plain sight was stunning. The buzz around the office grew louder. Suddenly, conversations in the elevator were about more than the weather. People were asking about side projects, asking for language tips, swapping book titles and app ideas. Elias quietly watched it unfold. He hadn't set out to change anything. But now, something real was happening. Then, the CEO made another bold move. He asked Elias to lead a small, informal group, the Language Circle. Once a week, anyone interested could join during lunch hours to practice speaking different languages together. No pressure, just learning. At first, only a few showed up. But within 3 weeks, the room was packed. People brought snacks, notebooks, even friends from other departments. Some just listened. Some tried awkward sentences in new tongues. Everyone laughed together, learned together. Elias had gone from invisible to irreplaceable. Not because he demanded recognition, but because his presence gave others permission to be seen. And in the middle of it all, Mr. Wallace realized something even more powerful than his original discovery. It wasn't just about finding skilled employees. It was about creating a place where people felt safe to share who they really were. Not long after the Language Circle began, something else started to shift inside the company, something deeper than just curiosity. Employees were no longer just talking about Elias. They were starting to talk about themselves. For years, the office had been a place of quiet routines and polite small talk. But now, people were bringing their full selves to work. And it all started because one janitor dared to show something extraordinary hidden beneath a simple uniform. One afternoon, during the weekly Language Circle, a young woman from accounting raised her hand. "I'd like to practice Mandarin," she said nervously, "but I've only learned a few words." Elias smiled and encouraged her to try. She stumbled through a few phrases, cheeks red, then paused, embarrassed. But before she could apologize, someone from IT jumped in to help. Then another person added a correction. Then someone else laughed and tried a joke in Mandarin. The room erupted into easy laughter. Just like that, it wasn't a class, it was a community. Word spread fast. And soon, Even people who had no interest in languages began stopping by, sometimes just to listen, sometimes just to be around something new. It wasn't long before departments that rarely interacted began forming connections. Marketing talking to logistics, finance talking to HR. People were learning about one another in ways that had nothing to do with job descriptions or office politics. The ripple effect caught the attention of higher-ups across the company. Mr. Wallace, always one to notice momentum, decided it was time to take things one step further. He called Elias back into his office, though this time with a smile already waiting. "I want to make your group official," he said. "Not just a language circle, but a talent initiative, something bigger. You've inspired more change here than any training we've ever paid for." Elias hesitated. "But I'm just a janitor, sir." Mr. Wallace leaned forward. "You were, but not anymore." Within a week, the announcement was made company-wide. Elias was promoted, not to a symbolic position, but to a real role, diversity and hidden talent coordinator. He would be in charge of organizing programs to uncover employees' strengths beyond the surface. Language groups, talent showcases, innovation clubs, whatever brought people's untapped skills to light. The reaction was immediate. Some clapped, some were confused. A few rolled their eyes. Old habits die hard. But most were curious. What could I bring, they wondered. One by one, employees started sharing. A mechanic in the company's delivery fleet turned out to be a classically trained violinist. A cafeteria worker had a YouTube channel teaching math to kids in 2 languages. A shy project assistant had built a robotics kit that taught young girls to code. These weren't just side hobbies. They were stories. They were passions. And they were powerful. Elias took each one seriously. He didn't praise people for being surprising. He praised them for being themselves. He'd listen, ask questions, and connected with others who shared similar interests. Slowly, something magical started to form. The office transformed. Whiteboards were no longer just for numbers. They displayed skills of the week. The break room became a pop-up exhibit for people to show off projects or teach a quick tip during lunch. Every Friday, 5 minutes were given to a randomly selected employee to share something they were good at, not work-related, just human. People started arriving earlier, staying later, talking more, smiling more. The energy had changed. It wasn't about productivity charts or efficiency graphs. It was about belonging. And throughout it all, Elias stayed humble. He still helped clean when needed, still gave a nod to the overnight team, still started every morning with a simple, "Good to see you," in whatever language the person closest to him spoke. Because for him, it was never about being recognized. It was about connection. The kind you don't need a job title to earn. The kind that happens when someone sees you, not for the role you play, but for the person you are. As the months passed, Elias's influence continued to grow, not because he tried to stand out, but because people kept coming to him. It wasn't just about the languages anymore. Employees from every corner of the company were showing up at his door with stories they had never told anyone at work. One woman from customer support had been teaching herself web development for 3 years. A guy from the mailroom quietly revealed that he'd been coding video games at night. Another worker shared that he'd been helping his local refugee community get legal documents translated. Elias never acted surprised. He listened, carefully, respectfully. He didn't rush them or judge them. He just let them talk. Then, if he saw an opportunity, he'd help them find someone else in the company who shared a similar talent or interest. And from there, the network grew stronger. People stopped hiding parts of who they were. The company started making space for people to step outside their roles, just for a few minutes a day. Every Thursday afternoon, for example, a room near the cafeteria was turned into a show and share zone. Someone would bring in a passion project, a hobby, a skill, and just talk about it. It could be anything. Origami, bread making, drone photography, meditation techniques. People began to see each other differently. Even managers began to drop their guards. One high-ranking executive revealed that he'd been learning Arabic because his daughter had married someone from Jordan. Another manager quietly joined a weekly writing group. Elias treated them all the same, whether they were fresh interns or board members. It became a culture of curiosity. And then came the day that changed everything again. The company was preparing for a massive overseas expansion. A deal with a new European client required direct communication in several different languages. Usually, they'd hire external translators, set up long meetings with interpreters, and spend thousands on miscommunications. This time, Mr. Wallace had a different idea. He sent a simple email to Elias. Within 2 days, Elias had gathered 5 employees, each fluent in a different language needed for the project. None of them worked in international business. One was from tech support, another from the front desk, one from data entry, and 2 from the operations team. But all of them spoke, read, and wrote in the required languages fluently. They formed a small internal language task force and were briefed on the project. The results? Fast, clear communication with the new clients. Real conversations that didn't need translation delays. The clients were impressed, stunned, even. They had never seen a company use internal, non-executive employees for such a high-level communication task. The deal went through faster than anyone expected, and the company saved tens of thousands in outsourcing costs. Word spread like wildfire. Departments began asking, "What hidden skills are we missing?" Other companies started taking notice. Even business magazines wanted to know how this company had discovered such untapped potential. And each time someone asked, Mr. Wallace gave the same answer. We stopped making assumptions about people based on their job titles. Still, Elias remained grounded. Every success led him to one simple thought. Who else are we overlooking? One day, he noticed a young intern in the copy room, head buried in a notebook, sketching something fast. Elias casually asked, "You draw?" The intern looked up, surprised, then slowly nodded. "I design things. Machines, mostly." Elias smiled and asked him to bring his sketches to the next open floor event. The kid was hesitant, unsure of himself, but he showed up, notebook in hand. What he revealed shocked everyone. His designs weren't just good. They were practical, inventive. He had solutions to problems the engineering team had been struggling with for months. After that, the engineering team invited him to sit in on meetings, not as an intern, but as a voice worth hearing. Moments like that became more common. It felt like magic, but it wasn't. It was just people finally being seen. Their talents were no longer hidden behind desks, uniforms, or quiet behavior. People weren't just coming to work. They were arriving as their full selves. And it all came back to one man who spoke 9 languages and who taught everyone to listen. The more Elias helped others share their talents, the more people started to realize something powerful. This wasn't just about languages or hidden hobbies. It was about being valued for more than your job title. The office, once a place where most people kept their heads down and followed a routine, now felt alive with possibility. Every hallway conversation had the chance to turn into something new. One afternoon, something unexpected happened. The company's senior legal consultant, known for being strict and rarely joining casual events, walked into the break room during one of the talent showcases. Elias was helping set up a table for a woman from HR who baked French pastries on weekends. The consultant paused, curious. After a few minutes of watching the reactions from the crowd, he leaned in and said, "You know, I used to teach philosophy at a university in France before I got into law." Elias looked at him, smiled, and simply asked, "Would you like to teach a short session sometime? Just during lunch?" There was a long pause. Then the man said, "Actually, yes, I would." By the next week, there was a sign-up sheet outside the break room for a lunch with a philosopher. 20 seats filled within minutes. What started as a one-time talk turned into a weekly event, and the crowd grew larger each time. People stayed after, asking questions, sharing ideas. It wasn't about work. It was about curiosity. It brought people together who normally wouldn't even cross paths. This idea kept growing. Someone from finance hosted a chess hour. A woman from marketing taught intro yoga. A janitor from the night shift offered a crash course in Latin American folklore. It was no longer about who's in what department. It was about what you had to share. Even the building itself began to change. What had once been a dull, gray hallway was turned into a wall of discovery, filled with photos and short stories submitted by employees. Each one shared something unique, a skill, a background, a moment that defined who they were. There were stories from single mothers who raised multilingual kids, veterans who had traveled the world, and even a young man who had once won a national debate championship but had never told anyone at work. Elias never stopped encouraging them. He was in the background of everything, quietly guiding people to step forward. But then something happened that tested the entire movement. A rumor spread that the company might be acquired by a much larger firm. The potential buyer had a reputation for cutting costs and streamlining departments. Whispers began again. Fear crept back in. Will all of this be shut down? Will the new company care about what we built? Mr. Wallace called an emergency town hall meeting. Everyone packed into the large conference space. Tension hung in the air. People didn't know what to expect. Wallace stood in front of the crowd, then asked Elias to stand beside him. He spoke with quiet authority. Most companies try to grow by changing who they are. We've grown by discovering who we already were. What Elias helped us find, what you all help uncover, is not fluff. It's the foundation of our success. He paused, looking around the room. If this acquisition happens, they won't be changing us. We'll be changing them. The room burst into applause. People stood. Some even cheered. It wasn't about corporate pride. It was about realizing that what they'd built mattered. They had gone beyond job descriptions, beyond the walls of the office. They had created something human, something real, and it had all started with a janitor who spoke 9 languages. After that, things moved quickly. The acquiring company did come in, but they didn't dismantle the programs. In fact, they sent their top team to learn how it all worked. They saw the numbers. Employee engagement was up, turnover was down, productivity had quietly soared. But more importantly, they saw the people, confident, motivated, proud of what they were a part of. Elias was asked to help set up similar programs in the new branches, not as a figurehead, but as a leader. And as he walked through new offices, places where no one knew his backstory, he greeted each person the same way he always had, with a smile, a quiet nod, and, if he could, in their native language.